Hey everyone, before we get to today's shows, I just want to ask you for your support. The UCAN Foundation has partnered with MoveOn.org to launch a petition that demands that Netflix and other reality shows put a disclaimer on the front of all unscripted shows. And that disclaimer says that all episodes are for entertainment purposes only, and any content can be edited, manipulated, and presented in any other way for storyline purposes. So please, if you can, check out the link in the description right here. Go add your name to support, and let's get this petition out to Netflix and start making some real change in the industry. Thank you for your support, and thank you for your signature. Now, let's enjoy the show.
Some people will take issue with this, but I'm a supporter and believer in the white lie. Like, if you don't want to go to something, I think it's okay to say, actually, like my partner's family, I've got to be with them, or I've got this work thing that I can't get out of. Like, you don't have to tell them it's because I don't want to be with you because you ask me questions that are painful. Like, that's not productive. So say that you're busy because you're busy.
Are you going through life blind? This is Eyes Wide Open with Nick Thompson. On this podcast, we share knowledge and stories that build human connection while elevating stigmatized societal issues such as mental health, holistic wellness, culture, free speech, and more, all to ensure we show up in the world with our eyes wide open. Hello, everyone. Welcome to this week's episode of Eyes Wide Open, a special Thanksgiving edition for you today. But before we get to that, I'm going to ask you, please, as I do every week, like, share, subscribe, help us with the show. We've been growing very well across platforms, pretty significantly now the last few months. And a lot of that is thanks to you sharing the podcast, leaving reviews, all of that. So thank you. Please do so if you haven't already. And today's special edition is with Dr. Isabelle Morely, who you may know from the UCAN Foundation, also a friend of mine. She's a licensed clinical psychologist, couples therapist, director of mental health services at the UCAN Foundation. And I wanted to have her on today to talk about setting boundaries and managing expectations over the holidays. So I, like many of you, have some interesting conversations around the holiday time when you get together with family. And in a couple of days, a lot of us here in the United States will be getting together with family to celebrate Thanksgiving, eat turkey, go through all of those festivities. But along with that comes first expectations, right? Like, we all go into these holidays with expectations that are internalized, memories from when we were younger and maybe even children. And then, of course, the expectations society puts on us for how holidays should look. And so what I wanted to do today was have her on to get her expertise from a therapist and psychology perspective of how can we manage those expectations internally so that we can find some joy in the holidays instead of the stress and angst that it causes a lot of us. Additionally, on the expectation side, how do you build strong boundaries with family to avoid conversations you're not comfortable having or get out of conversations that get brought up that you just don't feel like having? That could be news and politics, right? We have a lot going on in the world right now, and there's a lot of hot takes and hot opinions that are going to come from family, or questions and analysis or interest in your personal life on things you don't want to share. So I wanted to have Dr. Isabelle on today to discuss how you can manage expectations, how to set and enforce boundaries with family around these holiday times so that we can find some joy in our time away and our time with family. So I hope this helps you go into your Thanksgiving dinner and the rest of your holiday season with your eyes wide open. Welcome, everyone, to this week's episode of Eyes Wide Open. Today, I have a friend with me who is also a therapist. Her name is Dr. Isabelle Morely. You may have seen her on the show or heard her on the show before. Dr. Isabelle is a licensed clinical psychologist, couples therapist. She's also a writer for Psychology Today, and she is the director of mental health services at the UCAN Foundation. So, full disclosure, we work in a nonprofit together. We're friends, but it's the holidays. They snuck up on us, and I thought it would be good for us to have a conversation about the holidays, the expectations, the stress, setting boundaries, and being mindful about all of it. But before we get to that, we already know from the last episode that you wanted to be an actress when you were younger.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I thought of a different question that would be fun to ask you since you are a mother. What are your kids' aspirations when they grow up at the moment? Because I always think those are fun.
That is such a great question. My youngest is just over one, so if she has an aspiration, she has not voiced it yet because she can't say any more than 5 words.
It must be to hit the terrible twos running.
I'm sure she's really gearing up for that, actually. She's got a lot of energy. Um, my oldest has voiced several times that when she grows up, she wants to be a truck. So that, as far as I know, is what she's currently aiming for. And not a truck driver. She wants to be like very specifically a truck. So
Oh, I was going to try and clarify that, but that I would love to see her accomplish that.
you know what? I will let you know if it ends up coming to fruition.
I wonder, this is totally off topic. So I got totally uneasy yesterday when I saw that there's people like lining up to do Elon Musk's Neuralink implant. Have you followed or heard about that at all?
A little bit. I mean, I can't imagine wanting to be the first person to do anything like that ever. So it shocks me. But yeah, this is the future.
It just makes me think like if you're going to be connected to the infinite internet, can you become whatever you want in the digital world? So like maybe a truck is possible. That's where I'm going with that.
Maybe I should have her be the first child test subject for this to see if she can live in her alternate truck reality. I'm sure my husband would love that.
Yeah. No, yeah. Why wouldn't he? Why wouldn't he? You know what's funny about that too is I was listening. I know it's people don't always like this, but I listen to Joe Rogan sometimes, not all the time, but sometimes. And he was saying like it's interesting with like the Neuralink and AI and stuff because at some point, if you opt out, you're going to like lose. Like you're not going to be as smart. You're not going to be as productive. And that's what kind of a perspective I hadn't really thought of, but that's scary.
It is, and I feel like it's with every step of technology. Like if you don't have a smartphone, you're missing out on access to knowledge or your community. Like you really have to keep up with it to be included. And I guess that's the way it always is.
Yeah, I mean that's what led my dad to finally get a smartphone like 5 years ago was
Really?
what he wanted to take pictures of his grandson, and it was like you got to get a smartphone to do that.
The friend I had who held it the longest, had a flip phone for the longest, was a doctor, and he eventually got a smartphone because the hospital told him, like, you have to have, you can't allow this actually.
It's like a requirement now.
Yeah.
It's interesting. So let's get into this holiday thing. So I was thinking about this the other day when I asked you if you wanted to chat about this. I remembered it just popped in my head. And I'm a huge boundaries are my thing. Like I put them up left and right, like everybody's boundaried in my life at some point. But what got me thinking about this is I was thinking back to Thanksgiving 2020 and my family has a lot of opinions and I'm sure I get that from them because I have a lot of opinions. But I would say they're not always educated in the way that they're spoken about. And I just remember because of COVID, I hadn't seen my family since the holidays of 2019. So I remember I'm like going into, and I rented a car because I don't have a car. I'm going into Thanksgiving and my whole drive there, I'm like, so much stuff has happened since then. How am I going to sit at a table and talk about COVID, the 2020 election, the, denying the election, the, where do we go from here? The vaccine, like all of this stuff. I'm like, how am I even? And like, I like talking about this stuff, but I don't like talking about it with them. so I'm sitting there to myself and I'm thinking, I'm like, and then, it's like, how many people? You're only supposed to have 6 people at your house for the holiday. So all this stuff. And I'm like, okay, how am I going to avoid the crazy? How am I going to enjoy the day? And that's kind of what got me thinking about all of this. So I don't know if you don't have to necessarily comment on that, but what's your view? You work with clients, you work with couples, so you probably deal with in-law issues and all sorts of stuff like that. So overview, what's it like for clients that you've seen in your experience for the holidays?
I mean, it's a lot of it's exactly what you described. It's this sense of like sort of impending dread of how are we going to avoid these topics, or if they come up, how am I going to not engage in them, especially if I feel strongly about them. And I think it's that, like, alongside the sadness of, I want this to be a lovely holiday with my family. This is like one of the few breaks that I have in my year, and like, how can I make the most of it and have this sense of dread about it? And it just ends up feeling very heavy for most people, I would say.
I completely agree. And that now reminds me of the holidays are very stressful for me. I don't really, yeah, I don't really like them if I'm being honest. And it's for those reasons. They never go the way that like you would want them to go. And I remember, so my family, we do Christmas Eve and Christmas morning at my mom's. And then for Christmas Day, late morning, early afternoon, we go to my dad's. And we have my nephew's like 7 now. So he's obviously all about it. And Santa visits like 6 different houses for him. So,
Not
so
bad.
yeah, so that's kind of like a good driver, right? But one of the things was, it was a couple years ago. My mom usually has us all over the night before. We sleep over, all that stuff. And I went there, and my mom is a early bedtime person. Like she goes to sleep probably like 6 o'clock at night this time of year. And so she invited me over as normal. I go all the way out. She lives, anywhere from an hour to 3 hours away, depending on traffic. And so I go all the way out there and get there to find out like my sisters and my nephew are going to midnight mass, and we're just going to come over first thing in the morning. And then my mom goes to bed a good 20 minutes after I get there. And I'm just sitting there and I'm like, why am I here? I would rather be in my own home and come here tomorrow morning. And so after that, I'm like, who's coming Christmas Eve? Am I going Christmas Eve? And yeah, that was like I need commitment from the family to say who's going to go there, because I would just prefer to be, at home as opposed to at that home.
Yeah.
So
And that reminds me too of this change in expectation we have to have over time. Like, every holiday season can be so different, and I think a lot of us hold on to our childhood memories of whatever the holiday is, of Thanksgiving, of Christmas, of New Year's, right? Of like this sense of freedom and our family all being together and these traditions that happen. But families change a lot. Families break up, people have kids and do their own new traditions, and it doesn't look the same even year to year. And I think it's really hard for us to adjust so quickly each time without knowing if it's going to be actually a year when nobody is there the night before and you had no idea. It's like, whoa, what happened?
that's a good point. I never thought of that before, but it's like you hold on to these expectations. And so my mom, especially since my nephew, she like outdoes herself Christmas morning. It's like an unbelievable amount of presents. And she does the whole, like, I still get stuff from Santa, all of that stuff. It's so like there's like elements of it that are real to my childhood. So it's like getting those things from Santa and getting, stuff from mom. And then, so it's interesting because there are like elements of it, but it is still just so different. I never really thought about how you hold on to those expectations from childhood.
Yeah. I remember when my older sisters got married and had kids, started doing their own thing, I felt so sad and like abandoned by it. Of like, how could you not be home for Christmas Eve, right? Like, how could you do Christmas morning with your own families and not at our family house? And they were like, for them, and it just had really changed. And it took me a while to adapt to that, like this new way of being. And I think the empowering part of it is that as an adult, you get a say of like, okay, well, this is changing around me and I can't control who's going where and for what and what meals we're having. But like, what can I do? What days do I want to be home? What traditions do I want to have by myself with my personal family now that feel good to me? And I think that is the big adult shift that can help.
That's a really good point. And it's always comes down to like, you can only control yourself, right? And you can't control other people.
Yeah, which is too bad. 'Cause wish we could, right? Wish we could keep things exactly as they were, the way we want them to be, but can't.
Maybe with the Neuralink in the metaverse, you can do it.
You know what? Should we just cut this short? That's the answer. We'll
Yeah.
stand in line and get the Neuralink, and then you can have whatever holiday you want.
Yeah. That scares me. That stuff scares me so much. It makes me so uneasy. But, um, so you started your family a couple years ago. What are some of those things that you had to do? Are there any boundaries that you've had to set with other family members or friends or in-laws?
Oh, what a great question. I started my family March of 2020 when the pandemic happened. And so all of our holidays have been like not at all what I have anticipated or hoped for. Like the last two Christmases, we've all had COVID. So I haven't been able to see my
Both
family.
Christmases? Oh
Yeah,
my
like the
gosh.
day before we test positive. So like nothing has gone the way I had anticipated that it would. We've had to navigate splitting holidays with both of our
And
families
that's
because we
the
both.
expectations too, and you probably had expectations built into that for your kids too.
Oh God, yes. Of like time with their cousins and time with my parents and my husband's parents, and they had all these things set up, and then it just turns out we're sitting at home without food prepared because we didn't think we would need to have meals for Christmas, and it's like you make the best of it, right? But like expectations can get you into trouble.
Yeah, that kind of reminds me of I don't even remember my first COVID Christmas. I just remember that Thanksgiving, and I'm like, what am I walking in? It wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be, but there were some left field things I didn't anticipate. So,
So, I mean, I know you're opinionated, you're educated about this stuff. You tend to engage with people in these discussions. Like, I'm just curious what you do on holidays with family who have strong opinions that might not match yours.
so really good question. I've learned to pick my battles, but like one of the things I'm actually uniquely good at is I can actually talk to anyone because I am curious of the perspective. And, when I think about, um, the dynamic of my family, like I just know that I can kind of get us on a consensus on something. And then I try to like get us there and kind of end the conversation or change the subject. And then a lot of times, and my cousin, and I don't know if he's still listening to this. He should be. Aaron, if you're listening, Aaron, we used to sit in the other room when like the families would all get together and they would all just be sitting in there talking at over each other, not listening to each other. And we would just like drop in or yell something going on in the world and just get them talking about it and listen to it. So it'd be like, oh yeah, can you guys believe gas prices? And then, Uncle John would be like, and gas prices, they're out of control. And it would just be like the funniest game for us to play. But yeah, I pick my battles, and I think we agree on a lot of stuff. We just don't have the same path forward or the path that we think we should take. And I think that's kind of where, I stop before we get into that.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
that makes a lot of sense. I mean, you shouting out something, a topic for your family to pick up on, reminds me of something my siblings and I joked about, which is like doing a holiday bingo of like the things we know that are going to be brought up multiple times, right? And we've never actually made a bingo, I'll just say that. But this sort of like anticipatory preparation of yourself, right? Like, I know my mom's going to say this and my dad's going to make that comment, and this sibling is going to make this issue about this specific thing. And then it's just funny, right? Like, it's funny when you can shout gas prices and you know what the outcome is going to be. It doesn't piss you off then.
Yeah. 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 Actually, Danielle and I used to play that with her mom. We had bingo. But yeah, that's funny too, because that was now I'm remembering like that holiday 2021. Danielle actually got COVID and I didn't, which was so weird. I got it like 3 weeks later. So we had all of these expectations. We were doing the whole Four Christmases thing, like the movie with Reese Witherspoon and Vince Vaughn. If you haven't seen it, it's like one of my favorite Christmas movies because it's just so relatable. but it's hilarious. But yeah, we were supposed to do like all four Christmases with our families, and we ended up not doing any of them. And I remember like the expectations there and the way I would have loved to have AI route that because everybody's like 2 hours apart from each other. But yeah, it was interesting. That was a really big disappointment at that time around the holidays too. So COVID just sucked.
It really, really did. And I feel like the silver lining of it, though, is that it pushed people to have to go through things they didn't expect and that were difficult. And now people have a little more flexibility and resiliency with holidays, right? There's a sense of like, at least it's not middle of the pandemic, we can get together. And if things go sideways, we've gone through that before for the past 2 years, so we can do it again.
That's true. It did build resilience. And so far, I haven't seen anyone saying, be careful around grandma this Thanksgiving and only have 6 people in the house and all of that, which is a step in normalcy, back to
Eating
normalcy.
outside, people remember setting up like Thanksgiving meals outside and
Yep.
stuff. Different time.
Yep. I, it doesn't even feel real. I mean, everything feels so far away, but we're all still like coming out of it, it seems. But so, one of the things that's really hard with family, and this is, something that took me a long time. I've talked about it before on this show, like just putting up boundaries, not spending too much time with them because it just gets me in this, this state that I've worked very hard to not be in, like a constant state of anxiety. But it took time, right? It took a lot of energy. And I know a lot of people struggle with saying, Uncle so and so, Uncle Mike, I'm not comfortable talking about this. Or, Mom, I am not dating anyone and I don't need the lecture on whatever that might be. And so how do you recommend people approach the holidays when there are going to be uncomfortable conversations or there are going to be uncomfortable situations? Like
It's a great
besides good luck.
yeah, right? Tell me what you do. Um, it depends on your family dynamic. Some people have an open enough family where they could send out a text in advance saying, like, heads up, news flash, I'm not dating, or I don't want to talk about dating, or like, I'm just going to be opting out of politics this year if that comes up, just so everyone knows. Like, you're forewarned, right? If there's like a sense of lightness and humor, some families respond well to that. So you could lay the groundwork before you even get there. Some people find that easier. Um, I think in the moment, you do exactly what you said of like, oh, actually, I don't want to talk about that, or like, I'm not feeling up for that conversation. And then if you can like come prepared with the topic change that you're going to move it to, right? Like have something else to just steer it towards, or just get yourself out of there, turn to a new person, go get something from the other room, like find some way to be busy, just to separate that moment for yourself.
I have some advice for people on the separating. I call it the bathroom breather. If it gets uncomfortable, I go to the bathroom. And the good news is I have a very small bladder, so nobody's surprised that I go 2, 3 times an hour sometimes. So
You're like 10 feet tall. How is it possible that you have a small bladder?
I think I drink a lot of water, but it's yeah, that's a really good point. The other thing too that I've noticed is even if you say, I don't want to talk about my dating life. I don't want to talk about when we're starting a family, whatever that might be. Or I don't want to talk about my job, whatever it is. There's also the passive aggressive grandma or aunt or whomever in the corner that's going to be like, oh, I don't think I'm ever going to get, great grandkids, or the mom and the dad. Oh, I don't know. So-and-so over here is ever going to, get that dream job of theirs or whatever it is. Like the passive aggressiveness it's real.
Yeah. And it's so painful, right, to hear that from your family and to even have it in that indirect way. And passive aggression is somebody who's upset and trying to communicate it without saying that they're upset. So that when you say, hey, it seems like you're pissed, the person can be like, no, 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 I'm not, I'm fine, nothing's wrong. And the best thing to do is to just like hold up the mirror. And by that, I mean, when someone says, like, I bet I'm never going to get the grandkids I'm hoping for, I mean, you just say, like, maybe not, sorry, right? And that's the end of that conversation. I mean, chances are grandma won't push once you say, probably not, sorry, grandma, right? And again, to the extent that you can in those moments, like, bring levity to it. I mean, people are looking to engage, and if you use humor and step away, people usually take the hint. Usually.
Yeah, usually. The other thing too, and I just thought of this, is that whether it's passive aggressive or a direct question or comment, right? Like it also causes you to reflect and be like, well, why am I single? Or, when am I going to have the opportunity? Or, as you get older, I know particularly for women that does start to rain on them if they had hopes and dreams of having a family. So it's just like this ultimate, nobody's coming out of that feeling good about themselves.
No, it's such a things like that are so serious and heavy to bring up in a casual way about someone's life and their decisions. I'd say people could also just flip it back and be like, why do you care? Like, why do you want to know? Right. And
Right.
just put it back on them. But I think, again, this is back to like anticipating. If you know your family is very invested in you getting that promotion and they can't not bring it up, like you either say as a heads up, I don't want to talk about it so or you just lay the ground rules of like, I didn't get it. If you bring it up, I'm not going to talk about it. And you just hope that they respect it. But a lot of families won't, right? A lot of families have this like open door conversation policy and they don't want to have boundaries and restrictions. And there's nothing you can do to stop that.
Yeah. And that's when you opt out of Thanksgiving or whatever.
Yeah. And some people do. And I feel like some people will take issue with this, but I'm a supporter and believer in the white lie. Like if you don't want to go to something, I think it's okay to say, actually, like my partner's family, I've got to be with them, or I've got this work thing that I can't get out of. Like you don't have to tell them it's because I don't want to be with you because you ask me questions that are painful. Like that's not productive. So say that you're busy because you're busy.
That's true. I'm an introvert and I have like built-in excuses to not do anything all the time. So it's that's a good skill to learn to everyone out
Grace
there.
is very sick and I cannot leave him. Right? Pets. Oh my God, pets. Go to excuse.
Yeah. I think I just posted something on social media today. It was a meme and it was, let me just look real quick. It was in that vein. It was pretty funny. And I was like, this is exactly me. It was, this is boring for everybody, but it's worth it for me. I can't stay too long. My dog is waiting for me. Yeah, that's me. It's me at every social gathering.
It's you and Jeremy at every social gathering.
Exactly.
Actually, I mean, all jokes aside, pets, especially dogs, are a great way to get a breather. If you're somewhere where there's a dog that needs a walk, like that gets you into some cold, fresh air and out of the house, and you can recenter in nature with your pet. Like, be the dog walker. Take a break.
That's a really good point. All the dogs, if you got multiple dogs, then you get yourself all sorts of breaks.
Do it one at a time, just to make sure.
Right. There's another thing I thought of with kind of building on the passive aggressive. What about when you hear your family whispering and gossiping about you? Like, do you jump into that? Would you recommend jumping into that conversation to correct any misinformation, or do you just let it go? Because I'm now thinking about how I hear my family whispering and I'm like the only person not in the room. And it's like, okay, I know what they're talking about.
Do they really? That's awful.
Yeah.
That's so pointed.
And it's not necessarily like a bad gossip. Sometimes it's like a question or it's something along those lines. Yeah.
Yeah. I think that really is probably up to the listener. I mean, as a blanket recommendation, I would say don't. If you're looking to have like a peaceful enough encounter with your family and enjoy yourself, like you really got to, like you say, pick your battles of what matters to you and what doesn't, because you're not going to be able to sort through everything on a day or in a weekend with your family. So just try to find how you can have the best time with them.
Yeah. I agree. That's what I do. And a lot of times it's, let's all watch this movie so people don't talk as much.
As you say that, if I was with my family and I heard them whispering in my name, I think I would barge in. I think I would do the effective thing and be like,
Yeah. What do you, that's not true. That's not true. Or you can ask me. Like, I'm pretty much like, I don't offer personal information usually to most people, but if somebody asks, I'll usually, even if I don't give them all the information, I'll usually answer. So that's why I'm always kind of surprised when it's like, well, why don't you just ask?
yeah.
Or And that's kind of like the whole avoidant nature of my family, though, because, my sisters will tell me something that they heard my dad talking to my other sister about. And it's like, well, why doesn't dad just text me or call me? You know what I mean? Instead of like commenting on it to my one sister, who then tells my other sister, who then is more direct and will ask. It's
Yeah.
very.
And there's a lot of that telephone. My family does that, but it's like when we're making a family plan, we'll each text individually to all of each other to like gauge what people want to do and not do.
Same.
I lose my mind about it. Like, why can't we be on one text chain and all agree on something? But it's these dynamics get set really early, and people have different family roles that are hard to change, and you just work with it.
My favorite used to be before texting, back when my dad was not on the smartphone business. He would send an email and I'd be like, no, I didn't see your email asking me what time I was coming to Thanksgiving. Like, no, I didn't see it. I'm sorry. I missed that one. It must have gone to spam. Or like if family members aren't talking directly to each other, it would be like there's 3 people on this one, then one person from that one goes and emails 4 other people to find. It would just be like the weirdest. Families are weird. It's dynamics.
Are weird, and there's so many people, and the people like grow, right? Like you add people and then sometimes subtract people, and it's really hard to keep track of like what the best communication system is. And usually one person ends up being in charge and they sort of lead the communication pattern. You can't change their mind about how they do it, from my experience.
It's hilarious. This is so funny thinking like I think about these things randomly, but then I never like talk about them all at once. So it's weird to hear, but hey, at least I know it's not just me. Everybody has those.
It's not just you. I think there's that. And then I think a lot of people leave holidays feeling like overwhelmed, like it was a whirlwind, a hurricane, that like it wasn't relaxing. They didn't get time with family that they wanted. It wasn't connecting. It was like busy and harried and cooking and cleaning and everybody's screaming, and then they're like driving home like shell shocked of like, what just happened? Was that my Thanksgiving? Was that it?
Yeah, I think you're right. And I think that's a good way to like talk a little bit about expectations. And this is something that has stuck with me for like 10, 12 years now. I had someone, so sometimes people think I'm a pessimist, and I don't think of myself as a pessimist. I think of myself as a realist and a problem solver. And so like, why sugarcoat it? If we can say what it is, name it, tame it, all of that. And then someone told me who is, a friend and someone in my life said, I don't think you're a pessimist. I just think you're like the ultimate optimist. And then you always get let down by people. And I feel like that kind of like sticks with me, and it started changing the way I perceive things. But with the holidays, there's unbelievable, unlimited, untamed amounts of expectations in your face all day, every day. And it starts months before the holidays even happen. And I shared this and asked on social media too, because it was like October 1st and I go into my local Lowe's hardware store and there's Christmas stuff everywhere. I'm like, what is going on? It's 78 degrees outside. Like, I don't want to see Christmas stuff yet. But like, even that, those things, God, I can't stand Christmas music at all, but really before Thanksgiving. But it's already on in the stores now. Here we are. We're filming this the week before Thanksgiving. And it's like, it's just everywhere. So the expectations mount from society. And then you watch Christmas movies, which all end happy. And
yes. It's like New Year's, right? Of like, it's going to be the best night ever. You're going to go to the best party with the best outfit and the best midnight kiss. And I think it's the same thing with the holidays of like, you're going to have the hot chocolate with the marshmallows, and you're going to get to go pick out your Christmas tree and chop it down. And then you're going to have the best Thanksgiving meal of your life every single year. It's going to be cooked perfectly. It's so much pressure to have this like quintessential holiday experience. And I think it's anxiety producing for people, and they can't enjoy any of it. It's like, well, I've got to get through these 5 Christmas movies, so like, let's sit down and do it. And they don't even have a good time watching them.
That's so true. And then you think about when you get like through the Thanksgiving piece, it's immediately the next day. It's like Black Friday, and now you got to spend a whole bunch of money. And I'm like, what stress that puts on people. It's not like Well, we are the richest country in the history of the world, but it's not like all of our people are living in wealth. And so now you're adding like financial stress to it. And there's just, it's just everything about the holidays is stressful. And ultimately you seem to, people tend to get let down.
Yeah, it's all the stress, it's the pressure, and then the sense that they're missing out or they're not enjoying it as much as other people are, and they should be happy and they should love buying presents and they should love the holiday music. And if they don't, then they're right, there's something wrong with them. It's so complicated. I feel like what I have started to do, and I feel like we should all do, is like make your own internal priority list. Like, what do you actually like about the holidays, and what are those things that you can prioritize, and then just give yourself permission to like let the rest go because you can't do it all. It's just not possible.
That's really good advice, actually. I always feel like, so last year, New Year sucked. And it actually, my expectations were like a layer
Right.
below rock bottom. So it was pretty much like if I woke up on New Year's Day, it would have been a win. But I posted this on LinkedIn, or not LinkedIn, geez. I posted this on Instagram that night because I was thinking to myself, everybody has, and I'm kind of in the middle of at that time some negative limelight, but the whole post show glow or whatever you want to call it. And I was thinking to myself, I'm like, I'm going to open up social media the next day or two, and I'm going to see all these influencers, all these reality cast members in these beautiful gowns and amazing suits at these, parties that just seem unattainable to the normal person. And it's just going to be more of those letdowns coming at you from social media. And
Mhm.
I posted, and this is probably one of my most engaged. I mean, I had 100 at least DMs from this, and I posted, I was like, hey, just so you know, just because you're going to see all these pictures coming up doesn't mean that this is how New Year's is supposed to be. I'm sitting at home and I'm hanging out with one friend, and this is how I'm spending mine. And I want you to know that if you're spending it that way, you're spending it doing something more suitable for you, or you're not doing anything at all. That's okay. There's lots of people out there that are doing the same thing. And
Yes.
it was like therapeutic for me to say that because I always have expectations around New Year's. I don't even know why. I do it to myself.
And why do we? I mean, I think a lot of people talk about how it's this like you have to end the year in a certain way and ring in the year, and it's predictive of your next year, and it's the sense that everybody's having the best time. Because with like birthdays, it's easier to set expectations of like it's just a day, I'll do what I want, right? But nobody else is, it's not the rest of the world having your birthday. With New Year's, it's the rest of the world celebrating the new year. And I love that you said, like, I'm not out at a party, I'm not having champagne, I'm not kissing the love of my life right now. I'm like hanging out with a friend. It's okay. That's fine.
Yeah. And that was my return to social media after a week too, after taking a break. So it was like, I thought it was important, and it is, because like you said, you don't have to do that stuff. Like, what the funny thing is I think to myself, I'm like, if I was at one of these parties and I was in this amazing custom fitted made outfit and there was going to be press there, or there was going to be photo opportunities, I'm like, that's not really me. Why is that's something, that I'm almost like wishing I had said yes to some of the parties or some of the events and stuff like that. It's so weird because it's like I don't really want that, but like I think I do.
Well, and we want something that we can post, right? That makes us look a certain way or gets a certain reaction from people, their admiration, their envy, whatever it might be, even if you're not enjoying it in the moment. And that's like such a bigger cultural issue of how we live our life for how it looks to other people, even strangers. But it's sort of like back to what you were saying of how you spent your New Year's. If you can just center yourself and like, where am I this year? What do I really want this year? Even if it has nothing to do with what everyone else is doing, but can I feel content in that? That's your answer. Go do that thing.
Yeah. It always does come down to like what makes you content. But there's also that pressure of family having expectations on you, or friends or in-laws or any of that. So like how do you recommend people sort of self-regulate and assess themselves in these moments and not do things, especially around the holidays, for other people at the expense of their own wellness?
It's such a tough question because we really do, like, forever wish that we had our family's approval and praise. It's such a hard thing to ever fully let go of, but you just have to do it. You just have to disappoint people and learn that you can tolerate and survive their disappointment, that you can let them down. You're not letting yourself down. And I think we fear that they'll hate us forever, they'll judge us forever, right? They'll see us differently, it'll end that relationship. And like, unless you do something like pretty terrible, right? It doesn't. People might be like, judging you or getting together and saying whatever they want to say.
Gossiping.
Sure, and you can't control that, right? But you'll survive it and people get over it. I think, I mean, my personal life example is I'm vegetarian. And my kids are vegetarian and my husband's vegan. And let me tell you that there was not a lot of support in either family for this at first. Like, think of Thanksgiving. It's like turkey is the main thing that's happening, and we don't partake in any of that, anything that has any of the meat in it. And so at first it was a lot of pushback, a lot of, judgment, or like that we were like holding out on the holiday. We weren't fun to be around because of it.
Jeez.
And, like, implicitly, right? Everyone gets over it. No one talks about it now. Everyone just moves on with their lives. So just stay firm in what you want to do.
Yeah. So I actually, when I went gluten free, pork free, now I'm chicken free. Every time it's this huge fiasco. The gluten thing, I still think I have to tell them at least once a year what it means after 10 years. I'm like, it's can you literally for like years the question would be like, well, can you eat green beans? Yeah, I can eat green beans. Anything, just think of anything with flour in it. I can't eat anything with flour in it. Well, what about rice flour? Well, okay, yes, I can't eat that. It was just like the funniest, most fundamental, basic questions that I would have to deal with.
See, it's so hard. And then accommodate yourself as much as you can, right? Like, I'll bring my own food to places if it means the other person's not stressed about it and I'm not stressed about it. Like, don't hang on to, like,
Yes.
people should be making space for me. And like, absolutely, they should, but not everybody will. Like, my family happens to, but your family might not want to make you a separate meal that's gluten free or vegetarian. So just don't get into that battle. Like, bring yourself a pasta and have a good night.
That's a good point. My sister, we do lasagna for Christmas. My sister makes it. She does make me a gluten-free one now. So I get to
Oh,
partake.
see?
So when I have to ask though, so I'm thinking to like, what's at the table at Thanksgiving, right? Turkey, you can't eat that. Stuffing usually has the gizzards of the turkey in it. And then, even like mashed potatoes, I guess some people put stuff in it like bacon or whatever, but like what could you eat or what would you eat those first few years or that first time even?
I think the first year or two, maybe I think maybe like a vegan lasagna or something, some kind of alternative. But to be fair, my mom, who's like a French cook and does not know how to not put butter and chicken broth and bacon like into everything, she will make something. She will make stuffing that doesn't have any meat in it. She'll make some kind of main course dish. So she's adapted. She's made space for it.
That's
Yeah.
good.
Yeah.
I love stuffing, but being gluten free, I can't eat it. So I always like make my own. And it's vegan too. Yeah.
Yeah.
Or maybe it's not vegan. No, it's vegetarian, not vegan.
And see, and also it's like with things like that, this is very specific for like dietary preferences, but I
We've
don't, ex-
entered that portion of the conversation.
I mean, I don't expect my mom to be able to know everything that's vegan versus vegetarian versus the rest of the family can eat, right? Like, as people have their own preferences and needs, like I said, accommodate yourself. It's not even through like lack of love, but it's just sometimes it's a lot to learn to accommodate everybody, especially if that's the person who's hosting has like 10 different needs they're trying to meet. Don't take it personally. Just like help them out and avoid that conflict.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And maybe that's another thing we can sort of touch on. So you also have expectations of others. You may also want to know why your younger sister is single, or why your you know or you know why your older brother's been talking about that promotion and hasn't gotten it yet. How, it's important for you to self-regulate too and check yourself.
Oh, that is such a good point. Yes. Like we are so blind to the things that we bring that people find difficult or triggering. Yes. It's like going in knowing you don't have to ask the hard questions, or that you can be the person who rises above, who's forgiving, who's kind, who lowers your expectations for people in your family. Like I think that it's empowering again, but also yeah, that self-reflection is important.
Yeah, very true. You know, one more story I'll tell about my crazy. I just remembered. So last Christmas, um, I did my mom, like I said earlier, I did my mom's, and then the next day, Christmas morning. So my nephew's kind of a picky eater, and he's 7. He literally just wants chicken nuggets and mac and cheese, and I can't blame him because as a 38-year-old man, I want that every day as well. So it's I can't blame him. But my mom makes like it's really delicious breakfast casserole every year. And I forget what she left out. She left out something that he didn't like, and he like wasn't eating it. And by the way, I forgot my sisters told me that my dad's coworker showed him how to listen to this podcast, and he listens to it now. So now I'm like, uh-oh. But so that'll be fun. That's okay. It is what it is. But it's funny because I'm sitting there, and my one sister has some pretty bad anxiety sometimes. And so my mom is talking to my sister, who's my nephew's mother, and talking about why he's not eating the breakfast casserole that she made without whatever ingredient for him. And then my sister is then reporting what my mom's, and we're all sitting at the table, reporting what my mom's saying to my nephew, Oliver, trying to figure out why he's not eating it when grandma made him this, special casserole. And then my other sister is talking to my mom about my other sister, like not reprimanding him or what. And I'm just like sitting there and I'm like, there's 5 of us here, and we're all like everyone's talking about each other to somebody else. And no one's just saying like, hey, he's 7, it's Christmas, he's overwhelmed. Like, let him eat when he wants to eat. Heck, let him eat his, the candy from his stocking if he wants. It's Christmas. So it's just so funny because I'm sitting there and I'm like, this is why I don't come around all the time.
It's so much, but God, that story really lands for me because it's such a good example of how this tiny thing could become a focus or a point of contention, and it's like not incredibly important. But I think it speaks to this underlying feeling or need that we have for the holidays of like everyone enjoying themselves and feeling connected, right? And if you feel like you're not connected or people aren't enjoying things that you've done or you in the way that you want to, it can be very activating. And so when people are being difficult, chances are it's because like their hopes for this holiday aren't panning out and they're like trying to figure it out and get it back. Maybe there's an empathic way to view people in those moments.
I've never thought of it. That is so true. And then that's their expectation. So everybody just has their expectations and they have their plan of how they want things to go. And when they don't go that way, it's just everybody getting let down.
This feels kind of like a sad conversation about the
I
holiday.
feel like okay, so you want to know something funny? I have on uh his name's Callie Means, and he worked in like the food industry and left, and now he like speaks against it because of all the additives and how bad it's going to be. I can't wait. I've been trying to get him on for months. And I was like, why don't we put that episode the week of Thanksgiving and just ruins everyone who listens Thanksgiving? And I was like, no, let's not do that. And I'm like, let me think of something that's going to be beneficial and like won't ruin people's holiday. And here we are. Like, be prepared to let down, be prepared to let others down, and happy holidays.
I know, I feel like I mean, is there a way we can bring people up from this? I feel like going back to the idea of like, write your list of the 3 things you want from Thanksgiving or the 3 things you want from Christmas or Hanukkah, like try to find the things that you want, that you're in control of, and like take control of your holiday. I think that is like the best thing people can do.
I totally agree. And that's what I think we should encourage everyone to do this year, but also like really heading into the new year, like level set your own expectations and maybe look inward and be like, what would make, like for me, I know like what would make your holiday almost like tolerable if you feel like it's not going to be, like how do you get it to that level where it's not going to be bad, like take the baseline list that you make and like I'm going to make sure these three things happen. For
Yeah.
me it's always like the day after Christmas I am like melting into my couch. I am not like I give that day to myself to just not have any expectations, because I put expectations on myself every day to do certain things, to get this many steps, to accomplish this list of things. And that day, I'm just like, you know what?
Not today.
Not today. Not today. And I usually watch a Christmas movie on Christmas night all by myself, or at least with, one other person. And I'm just like, this is me closing that door and now getting ready to be disappointed on New Year's. Just kidding. I kid.
I mean, that is actually another great idea, though, of like, can you take a day or two off after, when people usually go back to their lives, to give yourself a decompression day and to do whatever it is that you love that would feel like your own personal holiday for that time? Because it's like, it's just building in this time for yourself, for whatever it is that you need that makes sense for you, that's not based on society's schedule of what you should be doing.
Exactly. Oh my gosh, I feel like we probably could have talked more about society's expectations, but we did a little bit at the beginning, so that's good. So yeah, I think like a parting word on this from me, and then if you have one too, another one, I think you already gave yours, would be do what you need to do for you to get through them and for you to get as much enjoyment and satisfaction out of it as you can. Lower this isn't meant to be negative, like lower your expectations, because society, movies, as I mentioned earlier, everywhere you go, all the music, all the food, all the presents, the gift giving, the gift receiving, like it's a lot of pressure. It's a lot of pressure. And there's no way that it's all going to work out perfectly. So just lower that expectation and then do what you suggested and make that list of things that you need to check off and say success, and go from there.
Yeah. And if you need to, if you're at this phase, grieve the holiday that you wish you could have, that you won't get, right? Accept what it's going to be, and then do exactly what you said. Figure out what you want, what's going to make you happy, take control of what you can. And like, this is your holiday. So make whatever out of it that you need.
I love ending on that. This is your holiday. It's not for everybody else. That's brilliant. Brilliant. That's
Your
perfect.
holiday season with Nick
Yeah.
Thompson.
Right. Like the least jolly guy in the world. But as you know, I always do an ask me anything. I feel like you've asked me a lot of stuff, but is there anything else that I can answer for you? I mean, we text it probably every day and at this point, so I don't know what's left unturned, but
I have two questions actually that came to mind. One is, are you like a turkey trot person? Is that you?
so interestingly enough, no, I'm not. Until COVID, every Thanksgiving morning, my friends and I would go play a game of flag football at like 8 in the morning. Yeah. And we did that for probably,
You woke up at 8 in the morning on a day.
I'm not a morning person, but I love playing flag football. So we would go do the turkey bowl every Thanksgiving at like 8. I think I'd leave at 8. We'd start at like 8:30 or something. But we haven't done that since COVID, and a whole bunch of people had kids. And let me tell you, when people had kids, I was with that, they slowed down. I'm not going to say why, but they slowed down. And I just all of a sudden was a heck of a lot better flag football player than I was before some of that stuff happened.
Competitive advantage.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So that would be my turkey trot exchange there.
And my second question is a Grayson question, which is, do you do holiday outfits for him? Like, does he dress up for the holidays?
He dresses up for pretty much everything. We do family matching pajamas, and the dog always gets one too.
Amazing.
Yeah. And he has a little, he's looking back here now. I think he knows his ears were buzzing, but he does. And he gets a little Santa hat that I make him wear and all sorts of stuff.
I expect to see that on Instagram.
You will. He also gets, his toys are out of control, and this is the other funny thing. Lately, he has this half-eaten tennis ball. The guy's got like 100 toys, and he only wants to play with this half-eaten tennis ball. It's like so funny.
His lovey, his security blanket.
Yeah, I guess so.
He's looking for the holidays, a whole new tennis ball.
And my sister just got a new puppy. So that will be our fun Thanksgiving meet and greet and it's another golden doodle. So it's the same type of dog.
That's so cute.
Yeah, awesome. It'll be fun. So, well, I appreciate you taking time, especially when I know that you are very busy person, not-for-profit stuff, having a full-time job, having 2 kids, all of that. So thank you for the time. And I hope that this was useful, and I think it will be, for people to survive the holidays, get through them with a smile on your face. So thank you.
Yeah, happy to.
Yeah, where can people find you online?
They can find me on Instagram, Dr. Isabelle Morely, or my website, drisabellemorely.com.
Awesome. And those links will be in the description. And you post very helpful social media posts too, so I highly recommend the follow.
Thank you.
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you. Thank you for joining us on this week's episode of Eyes Wide Open. If you enjoy the show, the best way to support us is by sharing or dropping a review. For more information and content, check out engagewithnick.com or find me on Instagram at nthompson513. Don't go through life blind. Do the work so you can show up in the world with your eyes wide open.